Hello and welcome to Revisiting Archive, the channel where we explore the lives and achievements of famous historical figures. I'm your host, and today we are going to talk about one of the most influential and controversial explorers in history, Christopher Columbus. You probably know him as the man who discovered America in 1492, but there is much more to his story than that. Who was he? Where did he come from? What did he do? And why is he so controversial? In this video, we will answer these questions and more as we follow his 4 voyages across the Atlantic Ocean that changed the course of history. But before we begin, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more History Explained videos. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Alright, let's get started. Christopher Columbus was born in Genoa, Italy in 1451, the son of a wool merchant. Genoa was a busy port city that traded with many countries in the Mediterranean and beyond. Columbus grew up surrounded by ships and sailors, and he developed a passion for the sea from an early age. He started his maritime career as a teenager, working as a sailor on various merchant vessels. He traveled widely, visiting places such as Portugal, England, Ireland, Iceland, Africa, and even as far as Ghana. He learned a lot about navigation, geography, astronomy, and history from his experiences and from reading books. He also became fascinated by the idea of finding a new route to Asia, the continent that was known as the Indies at the time. Asia was a source of many valuable goods such as spices, silk, gold, and jewels that Europeans wanted to trade for. However, the traditional routes to Asia were long, dangerous, and expensive. They involved either sailing around Africa or crossing through the Middle East. Columbus had a different idea. He believed that by sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean, he could reach Asia faster and easier than anyone else. He based his idea on several sources of information. One was a map made by a Florentine astronomer named Paolo Toscanelli, who estimated that Asia was much larger than it really is, and that it extended far to the east. Another was a book called The Travels of Marco Polo, which described the wonders of China and Japan in great detail. And another was his own calculations of the size and shape of the Earth, which he underestimated by about 25%. Columbus was convinced that his idea was correct and that he could find a new way to the Indies that would bring him fame and fortune. He decided to seek support from a European monarch who could sponsor his voyage. He first tried to persuade King John II of Portugal, who had a strong interest in exploring Africa and Asia. However, after consulting with his experts, King John rejected Columbus' proposal as too risky and unrealistic. Columbus then moved to Spain in 1485, where he hoped to find a more favorable audience. He settled in Seville and later in Cordoba, where he met Beatriz Enriquez de Arana, a young woman who became his mistress and bore him a son named Ferdinand. He also had another son named Diego from his previous marriage to Filipa Moniz Penestrelo, a Portuguese noblewoman who died in 1484. Columbus spent several years trying to convince King Ferdinand II and Queen Isabella I of Spain to support his plan. They were known as the Catholic monarchs because they had united their kingdoms of Aragon and Castile under one crown and had led a crusade against the Muslim rulers of Granada. They were also interested in expanding their influence and wealth through exploration and trade. However, they were also busy with other matters, such as fighting wars in Italy and France, dealing internal rebellions and managing their finances. They also had doubts about Columbus' idea, which seemed too ambitious and uncertain. They appointed a commission of experts to examine his proposal, but they gave him no definitive answer. Columbus was frustrated by the delays and rejections he faced in Spain. He decided to try his luck elsewhere. He sent his brother Bartholomew to England and France to seek support from their monarchs. However, he had no success there either. Meanwhile in Spain, things started to change in Columbus' favor. In January 1492, after a long siege, the Catholic monarchs finally conquered Granada, ending their war against the Muslims. They also received news that Bartolomeu Dias, a Portuguese explorer sent by King John II, had sailed around the southern tip of Africa and reached the Indian Ocean in 1488. This meant that Portugal had found a new route to Asia that threatened Spain's interests. The Catholic monarchs realized that they needed to act quickly if they wanted to compete with Portugal in the race for the Indies. They decided to give Columbus another chance. They summoned him to the town of Santa Fe, near Granada, where they were celebrating their victory. There, they agreed to sponsor his voyage, on the condition that he would bring back gold, spices, and other goods, and that he would claim any lands he found for Spain. They also granted him several privileges and honors, such as the title of Admiral of the Ocean Sea, the right to appoint governors and judges in the lands he discovered, and a share of the profits from his voyages. These privileges were recorded in a document called the Capitulations of Santa Fe, which was signed by Columbus and the Catholic monarchs on April 17, 1492. Columbus was overjoyed by the agreement. He finally had the opportunity to fulfill his dream of finding a new route to the Indies. He wasted no time in preparing for his voyage. He gathered 3 ships and a crew of about 90 men, mostly from the port town of Palos de la Frontera, where he had some friends and supporters. The ships were small and modest, but sturdy and reliable. They were called the Santa Maria, the Pinta, and the Nina. The Santa Maria was the largest and slowest of the 3. It was a carrack, a type of ship with 3 masts and a square rig. It had a length of about 70 feet and a capacity of about 100 tons. It was owned by Juan de la Cosa, a wealthy sailor and cartographer who served as Columbus' pilot. The Santa Maria was Columbus' flagship, where he stayed most of the time. The Pinta was the fastest and most agile of the 3. It was a caravel, a type of ship with 2 or 3 masts and a triangular sail called a lateen. It had a length of about 60 feet and a capacity of about 60 tons. It was owned by Cristobal Quintero, a merchant from Palos, who lent it to Columbus for the voyage. The Pinta was commanded by Martin Alonso Pinzon, an experienced sailor and explorer who was also from Palos. He was accompanied by his brother Francisco Martin Pinzon, who served as his pilot. The Nina was the smallest and lightest of the 3. It was also a caravel, but with only 1 mast and 1 lateen sail. It had a length of about 50 feet and a capacity of about 50 tons. It was owned by Juan Nino, another merchant from Palos, who also lent it to Columbus for the voyage. The Nina was commanded by Vicente Yanes Pinzon, another brother of Martin Alonso Pinzon, who also served as his pilot. The crew consisted mostly of sailors, but also included some adventurers, criminals, noblemen, and priests. Some of them were looking for wealth and glory, some were seeking new lands and opportunities, some were escaping from their troubles or debts, and some were simply curious or bored. They all shared one thing in common: they were willing to risk their lives for a chance to see what lay beyond the horizon. Columbus left Palos on August 3, 1492, with his 3 ships and his crew. He sailed south along the coast of Africa until he reached the Canary Islands, where he stopped for months to repair his ships and stock up on supplies. He also took advantage of the favorable winds that blew from east to west in that region. He left the Canary Islands on September 6, 1492, and headed west into the unknown. He followed a course that he calculated would take him to Japan, which he believed was only about 2,400 miles away from Spain. However, he was wrong. Japan was actually more than 10,000 miles away from Spain. He also did not know that there was another continent between Europe and Asia, America. He was about to make one of the most important discoveries in history. The voyage across the Atlantic was long and hard. The crew faced many challenges and dangers: storms, leaks, rats, diseases, hunger, thirst, boredom, and fear. They also had to deal with Columbus' secrecy. He kept 2 sets of logs, one with the true distances he traveled each day, and another with false distances that he showed to his crew to make them think they were closer to their destination than they really were. He did this because he wanted to prevent them from losing hope or rebelling against him if they realized how far they had gone without finding land. He also wanted to protect his claim to be the first to reach Asia by sailing west. As days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months, without any sign of land or life, the crew became restless and anxious. They started to doubt Columbus' ability and sanity. They wondered if they would ever see their homes again, or if they would die in the vast ocean. Some of them even plotted to kill Columbus or throw him overboard and turn back. However, they were prevented by the loyalty and courage of some of his supporters, such as the Pinzon brothers, and Juan de la Cosa. Columbus tried to calm his crew by giving them false hopes and promises. He told them that they were close to land, that they would find gold and spices, that they would be rewarded by the king and queen, and that they would be famous and rich. He also appealed to their religious faith, reminding them that they were doing God's will by bringing Christianity to the pagans. He also looked for signs of land in the sky and sea. He observed the flight of birds, the direction of the wind, the color of the water, the shape of the clouds, and the position of the stars. He also used his instruments such as the compass, the astrolabe, and the quadrant to measure his latitude and longitude. However, none of these methods were reliable or accurate. He often made mistakes or misinterpreted what he saw. He also encountered many false alarms. He thought he saw islands or mountains in the distance, but they turned out to be clouds or waves. He thought he heard waves breaking on the shore, but it was only the sound of his own ships. He also made several errors in his calculations. He underestimated the size of the Earth. He overestimated the size of Asia. He confused degrees with miles, and he did not account for the magnetic variation of the compass. All these errors led him to believe that he was closer to Asia than he really was. Finally, after more than 2 months at sea, on October the 12th, 1492, at about 2 a.m., a sailor named Rodrigo de Triana, who was on board the Pinta, shouted, "Tierra! Tierra!" He had spotted a small island in the moonlight. Columbus and his crew were overjoyed. They had finally found land. Columbus named the island San Salvador, meaning Holy Savior, in honor of Jesus Christ. He claimed it for Spain and planted a flag with a cross on it. He then went ashore with some of his men and met the native people who lived there. They were friendly and curious. They had dark skin, long black hair, and no clothes. They wore ornaments made of shells, feathers, bones, and gold. They spoke a language that Columbus did not understand. He called them Indians because he thought he had reached an island near India. He was wrong. He had actually reached an island in the Bahamas, which was part of a new continent the Europeans had never seen before, America. He did not know it yet, but he had made one of the most important discoveries in history. He had opened the way for the European exploration and colonization of a whole new world. But what was this new world like? What did Columbus do there? And what happened to him and his crew afterward? To find out more, stay tuned for part 2 of our video on Christopher Columbus. Thank you for watching History Explained. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more History Explained videos. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you next time.